You brought a tear to my eye. Thank you so much. That was just extraordinary. It doesn't seem like there's anything relevant to say after that. Hello, everybody. I want to preface my thoughts by telling you that I am an expert on absolutely nothing except me. I am a sculptor, and I'm going to pull you right back into me being in my studio, thinking about this extraordinary question that I was given: does art work? What a wonderful question. My first response is it rather depends on what job you're giving it. If you're talking about the moment a tiny child with a crayon experiences self-absorption and autonomy, for the first time finding the magic of hand-eye coordination, thrilling at the act of leaving a mark, a scribble, a line. I realise I should have a picture here, forgive me. I'm better really with a chisel. No intention, no plan, no judgment, just me, colour, affecting a surface. Paper, face, walls, then yes, art works. This first thrill is a twinkly light that some of us chase after for a lifetime in the studio. It's what keeps us turning up at the studio 60 years later. Letting children have access to paper and crayons has to do until they're old enough not to eat the clay you give them. The satisfaction for little hands poking and rolling bits of clay has nothing to do with results, not to begin with. It's about finding out what you can and can't do with it. You can stuff it up your nose, it won't stick an elephant under the table. Later, coil pots and working out how to do hair on a basic clay head are a sort of developmental rite of passage. Children allowed access to materials discover autonomy. This is art working. If you're talking about, here we go. Forgive me. If you're talking about those amazing prehistoric cave-dwelling people marking out their prey, their enemies on the wall, the animals they share the wild woods and plains with drawings so knowing that they feel spiritual like acts of devotion, we can ask questions. Were they done by the pregnant women, staying safe in shelter, as records of hunts, as shopping lists, as local knowledge for future kin, or longing memories of what changing seasons will eventually bring back? Were they illustrations for storytelling? We don't know. But it's clear humans have always made marks to communicate. It's nothing new. We know instinctively when the need to communicate is powerful. I own an Aboriginal shield with dot painting hidden under ochre. It is a powerful thing of beauty. It actually makes me feel guilty for taking it away from its land. I know that the dots are a map or a useful story, and I know it's important because the man I bought it from in a desert had painted over it with ochre and was selling it as a useful shield. It's not for me, but I feel its power. I feel the power of those dots. I know they're a map, a story, they're something. I don't have a Damien Hirst dot painting, but I don't think I'd feel guilty if I did. Am I doing something? Stereo. Whatever an artist is going through, the strength of those feelings will leak into the work. The feeling may not come from the subject matter, more the subject matter becomes the vehicle to get the feelings out. If you look at Constable's Haywain, humming with peace and herby sounds, and then look at his painting of Salisbury Cathedral from the Meadows, which was done after his wife died, fevered, turbulent, we imagine, having seen life differently, that there was no putting it back in the bottle. It leaks out into his paintings. We can ask questions. We can look back thousands of years at drawings made by who knows who, and we're still engaged because we all feel, and that is art working. An architect might see art as a great resource for softening the impact of the sheer cliffs of a building, giving a sense of place, even community, to a courtyard or other shared space. A terrific device for neatly covering a heating vent or giving a sprawling high street a sense of history and focus. When I was a student, I used to walk over Blackfriars Bridge on my way to college and regularly be stopped dead in front of a rather modest sculpture of Queen Victoria. The modelling of her skirts was so exquisite that the traffic vanished. I felt really upset when I saw the beautiful Frink sculpture of the Good Shepherd in Paternoster Square, tucked round the corner from St Paul's Cathedral. Why wasn't it in a more lovely setting? And then I realised its power to disappear its surroundings, and that is art working. A good art teacher in a moderately stocked school art room can change lives. This is where an alternative learning begins. For children who don't quite fit the learning by rote programme, the art room becomes a sanctuary. Success and failure take a twist. Failure becomes a challenge. Success a mere comma on a journey. Normal rules do not apply when art teachers are properly supported. Making art, studying art, that is when you learn how to learn. How to make anything with the nothing that you have available. And also how to recognise your tribe. For many children, it will be the first time art is visible as a profession. An introduction to the possibility that alternative lives are being led. Successes and failures become challenges, so that's art working. Art school is not just a building, it's a haven, an ideal for a questioning, confident community who are finding out how to do what they do better, learning how to give your ideas respect, how to exchange, support, own and ruthlessly question ideas before they flutter away. Again, many of my friends are still chasing the spirit of art school 60 years later with no sign of quitting. I and they would say that the studio is the real world. It is where I live and all that I'm alive for. Art school gave us that. I am, of course, speaking about the old model of teaching, where artists teach artists who teach artists, and the baton is passed on and on. At Chelsea, I had a grumpy professor whose major teaching aid was a cheese wire for removing unsuccessful forays in the life room. He proudly told us that he was taught by a man who was taught by a man who assisted Rodin. Thrilling. We learned that all Rodin's clay was endlessly recycled and reused. Casting and carving were done by experts. No need to spend time away from clay. You stick to what you're good at. Taking jobs like designing teapots, lecterns or doors was financially useful and a good stretch for the imagination. We learned all this from hearsay about Rodin. Artists are rare in that they earn money in order to be able to work. For us, art is the only work. Everything else is just money. Incidentally, if I ever wonder what on earth I'm doing trying to be a sculptor, after all, there are things the world needs more at the moment. I just need to stand in front of a Rodin, and its magic works on me. Of course I'm a sculptor. I'm on this journey. What else is there to do? Not everyone leaving art school can be a professional artist. It's not for everyone, and it has very little to do with talent. I mean, everyone can draw, and you only have to practice to get good. But not everyone wants a grubby, thankless workday where you're making things nobody asked you to and mostly nobody wants. That takes a special discipline. But every single art student is sensitised and I believe will lead a richer, more cultured life. So that is art working. Art can try and join in with what you might call civilian life, and I can say that because I'm old and rude and I don't leave the studio much. Banksy does a good job. Admittedly, he's preaching to the choir, but he gives feelings a voice. We can try and record historical events and celebrate heroes, but that's not going very well at the moment because we are living in a time of essential adjustment. I think what we artists are really supposed to be doing is reflecting the cosmos-sized business of being alive and feeling and seeing. In a way, artists are funfair mirrors. We can poke, flatter, mock or reassure. You'll find a mirror that you like, but I'd ask you to keep checking all the other mirrors in case you've caught up with the refraction. And a wonderful sculptor, Thomas Price, he is using skill, compassion and technology to people public spaces with sculptures of real people, real body shapes. Not everyone is ready to celebrate real body shapes, but I find it oddly refreshing. In 1972 or so, facts aren't much use to art, Louise Lawyer made a beautiful sound piece now housed outside the Dear Beacon Foundation in New York. She recorded the names of the male artists dominating every show, collection, award, book, catalogue, documentary, magazine, etc. And she made a loop sound, she made a sound loop of the names at different pitches. I can't do it for you, but it went something like, de Kooning, Hockney, more, but you can imagine, it's stunning. You walk past the building, you hear this twittering, and then you realise it's all the names of male artists. The sound became like an evening bird song, a great continuous chirping chorus of the same old, same old. Well, that piece worked on me 25 years later and rekindled my feminist tendencies massively. Judy Chicago's dinner party annoyed me immensely as a young artist. I saw it as separatist and overly cerebral. But of course I get it now. It was necessary. Louise Bourgeois and Rose Wiley are so honest about what excites and annoys them. They're thrilling. Next year, I may have new heroes. Art works like that. It can creep into your periphery vision, or it can smash in like a wrecking ball. Art works on you. Amidst all these thoughts, I'd like to draw you back to Monet and his water lilies. Let's stand behind Monet in his masterpiece of a garden in Giverny. He's old, he's tired, he's served in a war, he's run from a war, he's lost a son and he's going blind. He's in pain after an unsuccessful operation. At night, he can hear the screams of the soldiers in the seconded building, now military hospital, in his village, the village where all the young men have been conscripted. By day, he hears the sounds drifting from the front where the war rages, knowing another son is facing cannons. Some people say, how could he escape into his studio? How could he escape into the beauty of his garden? How could he be so oblivious? To me, his painting comes from a desperate rage. He seems to be furiously rubbing our noses in beauty, the sparkling light, the shimmering colour. He seems to paint the air between him and the willows. He's showing us the beauty of life. He's showing us the exquisite beauty of nature, the exact opposite of man and war. And he leaves the bulk of these paintings to the nation. Now, I can't say what of really lasting importance was left by the battles won and lost in that war, or any war. But the love and light in the water lilies is art heritage worth having. So for me, pretty much only art works. And to deprive children or adults to access to the very best in art education and exhibitions seems a very self-defeating thing to do for a civilized society. Without art, life is a grey nothing. Thank you.